Today, we're digging into the incredible story of a man from a nearly forgotten corner of the world who went on to build the largest empire humanity had ever seen. But you know what? Let's actually start with the end, with the magnificent ruins of the Persian capital Persepolis. When a Spanish ambassador stumbled upon them way back in the 17th century, he was just stunned, couldn't believe his eyes. And seeing this raises a really crucial question. How on earth did all this splendor rise from basically nothing?
To get the answer, we have to understand the brutal world that Persia was born into. And this wasn't just any world. It was a world thrown into complete chaos by the sudden and total collapse of a superpower.
Okay, so you had the mighty Assyrian Empire, a terrifying dominant power for centuries. And then, poof, it just vanished. I mean, imagine the world's biggest superpower today completely disappearing in just 3 years. That's the kind of shockwave we're talking about. And it left a massive gaping power vacuum. And into this void, two new powers rushed in to stake their claim. Down in the flat, fertile lowlands, you had the Babylonians, masters of trade, wealth, and these enormous walled cities. And up in the highlands, you had the Medes, a fierce confederation of horse-riding tribes who knew nothing but the mountains. Two totally different worlds, now eyeing each other across this shattered landscape.
And right in the middle of it all, squeezed into the rugged South Zagros Mountains, lived a collection of hardy tribes, known as the Persians. They were living a pretty humble existence, pitching their tents among the ruins of an older, fallen civilization. And every year, they had to pay tribute to their Median overlords. For all intents and purposes, they were nobodies on the world stage.
And it was into this world, around 600 BC, that a leader was born. A leader who wouldn't just redraw the map, but would completely change the very idea of what an empire could be. His name was Kurush, known to history as Cyrus. Now, his story is wrapped in legend. The Greek historian Herodotus tells this mythic tale of him being abandoned as a baby, left to die, only to survive and fulfill a grand prophecy. The reality, though, is just as dramatic. He was a prince of his subject people, but he had the blood of their rulers, the Medes, running through his veins. But here's the thing. Before Cyrus could even think about challenging empires, he had this almost impossible problem right at home. His first great test, his first real challenge, was to forge a nation out of a loose collection of proud, fiercely independent tribes who had spent generations distrusting and probably fighting each other. He rallied the tribes, calling them to liberty, and in the war that followed, the tide turned in a single unbelievable moment. The Median army, led by a general named Harpagus, who had a huge personal grudge against his king, suddenly revolted right there on the battlefield and handed King Astyages over to Cyrus in chains. Just like that. So now, Cyrus is the Lord of the Highlands, but he immediately faced a new, even bigger challenge from the west. His kingdom of tough mountain warriors was about to go head-to-head with the economic superpower of the age. And this was the question on everyone's mind, as Cyrus found himself in conflict with King Croesus of Lydia. Now, Croesus wasn't just rich, his name was legendary, it was synonymous with wealth itself. Cyrus was facing a man who commanded almost unimaginable resources. I mean, Croesus literally invented money as we know it. He had a seemingly endless supply of pure gold to fund his massive army. And the pride of that army was his elite, heavily armored cavalry. Think of it as the ancient world's tank division. Seeing the chaos of the Median Empire, Croesus decided it was the perfect time to expand his own. And this is where we see Cyrus's genius. He didn't just win, he completely outthought his opponent. When Croesus retreated for the winter, which was standard practice, Cyrus did the unthinkable. He marched his army through the snow and freezing mountains. And then the camels. How brilliant is that? It was unconventional, and it worked perfectly. He completely neutralized his enemy's greatest strength with an animal their prized war horses had never even smelled before. So with the wealth of Lydia now his, Cyrus controlled this vast territory from modern-day Turkey all the way to Iran. But one prize remained, the greatest city on earth, the ancient, powerful, and supposedly impregnable city of Babylon. But what Cyrus found was an empire that was ripe for the taking. The king of Babylon, this guy Nabonidus, was seen as an eccentric, a heretic even. He had totally alienated the powerful priesthood and the people by neglecting their chief god Marduk. The city's gates may have been locked, but the hearts of its people were wide open for a new ruler. And the uniqueness of this conquest is really what sets it apart. In 539 BC, Persian forces entered the world's greatest metropolis not as destroyers, but as liberators. The historical record on the Cyrus cylinder is crystal clear. The city fell without a fight. The people actually welcomed him. This right here is the true revolution of Cyrus the Great. It's what makes him such a pivotal figure in world history. For centuries, empire building meant one thing: terror. You conquer, you burn temples, you deport entire populations to break their spirit. Cyrus, he flipped the script completely. He introduced this unprecedented policy of religious tolerance and cultural respect. And this single act had absolutely staggering historical consequences. By allowing the many peoples held captive in Babylon to return to their homelands, he earned their loyalty. And for the Judeans in particular, his mercy was so profound that they honored him in the Hebrew Bible with a title that had never been given to any other non-Jew, Mashiach, or Messiah, the Anointed One.
Ultimately, Cyrus's empire wasn't just built on military might, it was built on a revolutionary idea. See, he understood that the old Assyrian model of ruling by terror was strategically brittle. It required constant, expensive force just to suppress the rebellions that were bound to happen. But an empire of tolerance, that turns conquered subjects into willing participants. Their cultures and their innovations didn't need to be crushed. They could be integrated, making the whole empire stronger. He built an empire of loyalty, not fear. And in doing so, he forged a more resilient and dynamic kind of global power.
And this whole story really leaves us with a powerful final thought. For thousands of years, history has so often been a story of conquest and destruction. But Cyrus the Great proved that true, lasting greatness isn't just about what you can conquer, but about what you choose to build in its place.